First meeting. We have the board members, the draft minutes from the September 29th Finance Committee. Steve, did you want to?
We're going to start with the governance committee.
Okay, I'm sorry. It says meeting number 2.
No, that is the second governance committee meeting of the year. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I apologize.
It was so obvious too.
thank
So
you.
as you
You can ask.
Okay.
and
On top, we should have known.
I'll have to remember that next time. Never to call it meeting number 2.
All right. I'm going to turn it right over to you then for the governance committee and Bob for the council memo on responsibilities and requirements.
Sure, yeah. Duncan asked me to put together some information for the benefit of the new board members and also as just a reminder to the existing board members of basically the responsibilities of board members are appointed state board. And so what you have in front of you is a memo, and I'll just briefly walk through it, and as well as there's sort of exhibits that would give some more information on each of the topics. And some of the stuff for the new board members, you'll recognize from the onboarding process that the board went through. And then if obviously if there's any question, contact me for any further detailed discussion on it. But the first item is for new board members. There's a fiduciary duty acknowledgement. This is a requirement that was implemented with the Public Authorities Accountability Act. New board members need to acknowledge their financial duties by signing a written fiduciary duty acknowledgement form. And this form was developed by the Authorities Budget Office in consultation with the New York State Attorney General's office. So it's a form that they produced, and that's the form that it was presented and the board that we asked you to sign. Very generally, it just reminds you that your duty is to the organization, and that when you're making decisions, it's got to be in the best interest of the organization. The second item is independence. Again, the Public Authority Accountability Act requires that the majority of the members of the board be independent. That doesn't mean that even if for some reason you don't meet the definition of independent, that doesn't mean you can't be on the board. It's just that the majority has to be independent, and then the consequences for not being independent is you're not able to serve on the board of governors. And there's a specific definition of independence. And you'll see in the pamphlet exhibit 2B, and this is actually the form that the authority sends out on an annual basis, and we ask each board member to execute this form, and it defines what independence means in accordance with the act. And it's basically if you've been in the past 2 years employed by the authority in an executive capacity. That means, so basically, if you were the executive director and then you got promoted to the board, let's say you're no longer the executive director, got promoted to the board for the next 2 years, you're not actually considered independent. You gotta let 2 years go by. And again, that's fine if that happens. It's just that the prohibition of you can't serve, on the audit committee or governance committee. The other thing for independence is if you're employed by an entity that basically receives financial assistance from the authority. We don't do that with this authority. We don't give out financial assistance. But the other thing is, if you are employed by an entity that the authority procured more than $15,000 worth of goods or services, it would be considered independent. And then the other item is just you're not a relative of an executive officer or employee in an executive position of the authority. So again, a relative of the CEO or something like that. And then lastly, in the past 2 years, you've not been a lobbyist registered to lobby the authority. All right, the third item is the New York State Ethics Commission training. And for the new board members, the first item is an online ethics orientation, and that's got to be conducted within the first 90 days of becoming a board member. And it's really based upon if you're a financial disclosure filer, and any board member is considered a policymaker, so they're subject to financial disclosure filings with the State Ethics Commission. It used to be JCO, but recently changed. So again, as a policymaker, you're required to do the financial disclosures with the Ethics Commission, and therefore that triggers the Ethics Commission training. Within 90 days, you gotta take the online training, and then within 2 years, you have to take a comprehensive training course.
That's what you've provided to us in the past, right, Bob?
Correct.
So
So,
maybe in-house in the past.
yeah, and then recently we just did the 3-year refresher. So again, it's 90 days online when you first get appointed. It would be within 2 years, you have to do the comprehensive course. And then every 3 years, a refresher. And so for the existing board members, oh, and I think we combined it. We had a new board member that satisfied within the 2 years of the initial training. And then for the existing board members, it satisfied the refresher for 3 years.
Everything's happening in time, it's in contact with my ethics and what was JCO, and I'm gonna be taking a trainer course in the first part of November. Make sure my certification as a trainer is on.
I took the comprehensive online, just so off of that, but it was a couple hour just class here. Probably as a result of COVID, but I don't know if that's still an option.
It is.
Yeah.
It's just for the convenience of the board, but I'm in that, try to get everybody on the same cycle. We had in-house with Bob Lid, and I participated in it with everybody else.
Yeah, they allow, which is nice, is you can either get the training directly from the Ethics Commission, or they allow somebody from the authority to be trained as a trainer. And Duncan got certified as a trainer, so I worked with him. I'll put in the presentation.
And the presentation that because other board members here are compensated anyway, volunteers and non-compensated, there's a certain training course that involves fewer items. So Bob was able to tailor it to the items that particularly pertain. Right. Bit of time saving.
Yeah, it's because initially I think the recommended course that the Ethics Commission had was just geared towards everybody. So there's a lot of requirements that wasn't actually applicable to a volunteer board member. So I think when we first gave the training, we sort of skipped over that because it wasn't relevant. And then the Ethics Commission actually changed their model presentation to make one specifically for volunteer board members. There's also an AVO training requirement, and this was a requirement under the Public Authority Accountability Act. And all board members need to be take the training within 1 year of appointment of the board. And this is something where if you're a member of more than one board, it's sort of the same training. So you can get satisfy that requirement if you're a member of another board. You take the training within 1 year, and we just ask that we get a copy of whatever acknowledgement you got, so we know that you receive the training. And then there's also the requirement that a refresher training occurs, as sort of needed. And that's something we do here whenever there's any changes in the law that would impact the authority or any sort of best practices. That's when usually at a governance meeting, I would present and let you know what the changes are, whatever the best practices are, and then we make a determination whether or not we should create new policies or amend an existing policy.
The governance committee usually happens instead of the annual meeting to try to define that. That's why this meeting is number 2 year. The first meeting is associated with the annual.
Mhm.
And that's when Bob, and there are some things that have to be updated by the authority each year in the annual meeting. And really ethics.
The third, or the next item, which is actually the fifth item, financial disclosure forms, which I already touched upon. This is a requirement in the public officers law. Again, board members, officer employees of the state public authority are required to file a financial disclosure form. And again, that is based on either being designated a policymaker or if you're a state employee and you make over a certain amount in annual compensation, that also triggers the filing. And then, like I said, that filing also triggers the training under the ethics commission. The next item is the board member ethics and conflict of interest policy. And the Public Authority Accountabilities Act require that all authorities have a ethics policy that's consistent with Section 74 of the New York State Public Officers Law, and that's just sets out the sort of the standards. So we developed a ethics policy and conflicts of interest policy that's consistent with that Section 74 of the Public Officers Law. And also our policy, which is also in the packet as exhibit number 3, defines sort of really what a conflict of interest is, and we talk about an actual conflict of interest versus a perceived or an appearance of a conflict of interest. And then we also discuss the procedures for how to handle a conflict of interest. In the simplest form, it's disclosure and recusal. So if there's anything that you're aware of coming up where there would be, you feel as though there's some sort of maybe an appearance or an actual conflict, the best thing to do is contact us ahead of time. We can discuss it with you to see if there's something that actually exists and what you should do at the board meeting. Or if you're at the meeting and something comes up that you weren't aware of, the best thing to do is just disclose it. And if there is some sort of vote or whatever, just recuse, and that sort of cures the conflict. The next item is procurement lobby restrictions. And this is something we built into our procurement policy. So if you look at exhibit 4, so exhibit actually 4B, we have our procurement policy. And then within that policy, we start talking about the procurement lobbying law, which we're subject to. And then it has, the procedures that are required to comply with the procurement lobbying law. And it has the forms and attachments that we normally would include within any of our solicitations for proposals. And the main point of the procurement lobbying law is you have to designate a person that would be the contact person that any vendors or offers would contact. So normally in the situation of the authority here would be Duncan. So any vendors would contact Duncan. It would be considered an impermissible contact if a vendor reached out to a board member and that contact was reasonably interpreted as an attempt to influence the procurement. So that's the prohibited conflict, and that needs to be reported, and we need that contacts you on a procurement, and we always notify you when the procurement goes out, who's the designated contact. And again, if anyone contacts you, if it's just questions, that's one thing. If it's not an attempt to influence, then they still should be contacting Duncan. It's good just to, be aware of that and let us know that you're contacted, but that's actually not a prohibited one unless they really are trying to influence the procurement, and it's prohibited. And then there's ramifications for the vendor, because, they could be prohibited from actually being awarded the contract. And if they sort of violate these state rules for, I think it's twice within a 4-year period, then they could be prohibited from being awarded a contract on any state contract. Okay, and then the last item is the director's evaluation. And this is something we do annually. It's required by the Public Authority Accountability Act that the board members fill out a survey regarding, sort of their observations about how the board operates and how the authority operates. You send this out. When did you send this out?
We provided,
Yes, right before the annual meeting.
it's returned anonymously.
And this is the one that year after year I say, if there are any issues, I'd like to address them as a board.
Right, so it's anonymous, so you can fill it out, send it in. Then what we do is we take the results and aggregate them, and those results actually get sent to the authority budget office.
Yes.
But again, the chair and even pastors always recommended if somebody does have an issue, just don't check the box and bring it up. This
Yeah,
is
'cause it's
obviously
looked
a
at.
working
Yeah.
board. We have limited staff, so it's best just to discuss it, and any ideas are always welcome for the changes and improvements. On the last page of my memo, I just have some miscellaneous items that I just wanted to bring to your attention. Our enabling legislation requires that we have 5 members as a quorum, which is standard for public bodies. It's the standard is you have to have a majority of the whole for a quorum, and you have to have a majority of the whole for an affirmative vote. We have an interesting item written into our enabling legislation that we actually can do an affirmative vote is 4 members. But it says, however, if the proposition requires the expenditure of funds, affects contract rights or property rights, then 5 affirmative votes are required. So again, you need, a majority of the whole for the quorum, you need a majority of the whole for an affirmative vote. Most items fall into that requirement, so it's very limited where we would be able to approve something with 4 votes. The one example I can think of would be like minutes. We could do 4 votes, and I think we actually utilized that once before, just because of having a limited number of people.
The exception being if someone hadn't attended the previous meeting and they weren't in a position to affirm.
Correct. Yeah, as a best practice, we recommend, of course, if you didn't attend a meeting and you're voting on the minutes, to abstain from voting on the minutes. So we were in a situation where that occurred. We only had 4 affirmative votes, and we were able to approve the minutes.
As long as you keep track of that, we're good.
Yeah. And then again, our committees, we have an audit and finance committee, we have governance committee, and both of those committees are committees of the whole board. Again, because of the nature of our limited staff and what we do, it was decided that, for these types of issues that come up, that it's best for the entire board to be involved in it. The other committee is the Economic Impact Committee, which is a subset of the board, and that is the committee that actually analyzes, the numbers and the results of the activities that occur, at the facility. Then I listed out all the policies that the authority has, and these policies are located on the website, so you can go there and click on it, and they're there. Go through them right now, but again, if anyone has any questions, once you look at these and you have any questions or recommendations or concerns, just feel free to reach out.
Under tab 3, you have all the documentation. Are we up to date on everything? Do we need to pull these things apart, sign anything?
Right now, we have copies of the fiduciary and independent statements from all the board members, including the 3 new members.
Okay,
So our file is complete. We're going to repeat the process. Some of the parts of the process will be repeated for the annual meeting for fiscal year 23.
Right.
As of this moment, we're
we're
covered.
good?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
During the annual meeting, there are certain policies that need to be affirmed by the board.
Yeah.
They will be affirmed, and they're referenced in here. There's no action to be taken as part of the governance committee right now.
Okay.
Governance committee is required to meet twice a year. The finance committee meets, it's usually 3 times a year. But there is a requirement, so having the second meeting met the requirement for 22.
Any questions from the board? Okay, then I think we're done with meeting number 2 of the government committee.
You want to have a motion to adjourn?
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So I think just the usual action. Okay, now we go into a regular board meeting. Steve, are you going to be able to do anything? Well, first of all, let's do approval of draft minutes from Audit and Finance Committee and special budget meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Steve, are you going to be joining us for an intro to the treasurer's report or not?
Is Amy and Meredith both there, or
Just Amy? Not just Amy.
Amy's
Amy's here.
here. For clarity, Meredith has accepted some additional responsibilities at BSD, and Meredith's responsibilities have been assigned to Amy. Amy's received a promotion to a more senior position. And as Amy has presented to the board and has been the author of these documents for quite some time, she'll be doing the presenting from here on out.
Thank you. Steve?
so I'm gonna defer right to Amy on the report, if that's okay?
The information is under tab
Tab
3,
3.
and if you could bring up the financials, please.
Maybe check it out.
Could you bring up the financials, please?
There you go.
That's it. Thank you. Just as a preface before Amy starts, this is the revised format that had been discussed with the treasurer. As you're aware, Steve, we've added this first page, which is the net assets year over year. And then we added additional information on the third page, which Amy will get into in a moment. This is the revised version we discussed at the last meeting.
Thank you.
So the first report is just for informational purposes. I'm not going to go over that. So we're just going to move to the second report, which is the statement of net position. So as of September 30th, our cash balance was 4.5 million compared to 12/31/21. The balance was 3.6 million, which is an increase of 884,000 or 24%. AR is 500,000 compared to 291,000 last year, which is an increase of 71%. Other current assets of note is the hotel occupancy tax, which is 1.6 million due from Albany County, compared to 1 million at the end of last year, which is an increase of 59%. As of September 30th, total assets are 6.8 million, total fixed assets 69 million, giving us a total assets of 76.7 million. Moving down to the liabilities and equity, we have 84,000 in accounts payable, which is a 28% increase from 12/31, and total liabilities of 1.26 million. Net assets were 75 million, and the increase in net assets as of Q3 was 127,000, giving us 76.7 million in liabilities net. Have any questions?
Questions?
I have a question. So are these projections for to the end of the year? Because your comparables are to December 31st, 21. So is this the first 3 quarters thus far for 22, or is this the projections of the final quarter as well?
Second report, I just found
The
it.
one that you just did, yes.
Yep, so that's through September 30th compared to December 31st. So the first one, you can compare year over year and get a better picture of where we were as of this time last year.
Thank you.
We will move on now to the statement of net position. Total operating revenue for the Albany Capital Center year to date is 875,000 compared to last year's, which was 283,000. And 76% compared to the budgeted amount for the year to date of 1.1 million. Moving down to the operating expenses for the Albany Capital Center, we have year-to-date expenses of 1.8 million, and compared to this time last year was 1.5 million, and they're under budget for year-to-date this year by about 65,000. So the total loss year-to-date is 965,000. Compare that to budget, which is budget amount of loss of 771,000, but we're doing much better than last year at this time, where our loss was 1.2 million. We're going to move down to the Albany Convention Center Authority now. So year-to-date operating revenue is 3.1 million compared to last year's revenue of 2.2 million. That increase is attributed to the 94% increase in the hotel occupancy tax. Operating expenses through the third quarter were 2 million, which was roughly 122,000 under budget and 90,000 less than the year-to-date expense of last year. So in all, the total net income through September 30th was 127,000 compared to a budgeted net loss of 886,000. If you compare where we are this year to last year, where the net loss was 1.1
Yay.
I think what we're seeing is recovery in progress.
Yeah.
And while there will be continued need for subsidy, we're beginning to approach numbers that sound a little like stabilization. It's kind of nice. Still would be a long way to go, but we're in the right direction.
Any questions about the treasurer's report?
Motion approved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Michael. All in favor?
All right.
Okay. Next. More numbers. Ready? You were all informed as board members that we're taking a more streamlined approach to the economic impact and trends than we usually have. And what you have in your packet is under tab 4.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Is I don't want to say truncated, but a more streamlined report on where we're at. And based on our financial report, I think it's appropriate to say, you know, we're moving forward and trying to streamline a bit and not have duplication. Is that correct, Shannon, you
Yeah,
think?
yeah.
And hear it twice from both our partners at Discover Albany, as well as our ASM folks. So this is, again, a good analysis of where we are. And as we just discussed in the financial report, you can see it in this shorter report that we are on the occupancy recovery. That wonderful red line keeps going up a little bit. There have been some changes in the mix of business, and I'm sure Shannon will get into that as well. We're trying very hard, she's trying very hard, staff is trying very hard to get us back on the really the convention side and those things that really make a big difference to the destination itself. I'm very encouraged. I look at it every week. I'm very encouraged to see that things truly are moving along. There's been some shifts, but I think we need to be aware of those shifts. It's one of the things that we saw in the past couple of years when things have been a little soft has been sports was very good. Well, sports is a little lower this time, so it's not that Shannon and staff are not keeping tabs on that. I also would like to report that we're looking for Discover Albany to provide us not just this information, but in our meeting, and Michael and I were on at the meeting or on the call for the meeting, looking at how we move forward and where we are in the scheme of overall the landscape of what we're dealing with and getting back into the convention business so that we can be a part of this destination. I think that's very important, that we're certainly not here to usurp or hurt any of our hotel or destination partners. We know what our job is supposed to be and how we're supposed to move forward and what our strength is. And we just need to keep that in mind as we move forward. And I'm sorry, Evan, I'm sure you don't know where the heck you are. It's okay. We're doing good.
You just keep scrolling.
So Duncan, did you want to add anything to the, I mean, this is a
Specifically, we've
nice,
asked Discover Albany to provide lost business analysis.
Yeah.
It's important to know why we did get a piece of business.
yes.
What did it have to do with the destination? Was it something added? Was there a subsidy needed? Was there some sort of an effort? We've asked them to develop a case report to understand where they are in terms of meeting any goals. And we've asked them to develop a lead generation report. The important thing is these are items, this is standard procedure in the convention bureau elsewhere. Not asking for anything out of the ordinary or asking to do something to divulge information proprietary. This is market information, and it will help us inform not only ASM, but I think we can inform ourselves how we can best help destination market as well as marketing specific.
That's important. It's marketing the destination because we all win when more people come.
The rising tide analogy, et
Yeah.
cetera. But it's very clear from legislation that the responsibility of this authority is also to market the destination, not simply promote this facility. We start looking backwards to the decrease in hotel room business spending associated with the day we opened March 1st, 2017, and particularly when fully opened a year later,
Mhm.
significant actual level things as well.
Any questions on the new reporting form and
The reporting form will be supplied to you, but in addition, and as backup, you will have a report that's provided by Discover Albany for reference. So there's more detail in that, and what we're trying to do, just capture some of the screenshots that are in the executive summary are taken right from there. Just try to give you one stop shop.
Okay, I think we'll need to kind of take a look at that and see, maybe just to provide it in the future online for our board members, so you don't have.
Doing that online.
Yeah.
Sure, we can do that. It is online as of the Friday before, but we can just continue.
Well, just
Save-
let folks
save the
know.
reason.
Because I've got 6 inches of paper here. Okay. So we've gone through economic impact, so we're down to, am I correct, Duncan?
But you're in the
Shannon?
operations update now and begin with Shannon. That's
Sure.
okay. Evan, if you could turn to the ASM report. Please.
We'll put me through your paces. Good morning to all of you. Always great to gather again as we're closing out the year. Certainly, my reporting has changed throughout the last few months. So it's nice to kind of be reporting on stuff that we're used to seeing. I chose some pictures. I've been trying to do some snapshots for you guys over the quarter, so you can kind of see some of the things that we've been excited to welcome back. Starting with the top corner, that actually was the largest trade show we've ever had since the building has been opened. We fit 172 booths upstairs. So for us, it was really, really exciting. It was the New York State Liquor Authority. They came to do a holiday trade show with us, and it was a great event. Very well attended, but it was a real fun opportunity for us to actually maximize that space for the first time. So it was a lot of fun. Going to obviously our Taekwondo competition, they were back to full strength numbers pre-pandemic. So we were really, really excited for them. They have been with us the longest. They started with us in 2017, and they actually have the longest running contract right now through 2026. So they're going to be with us for the long run. So we have a great relationship with them and wanted to highlight. The balloons that you see, that was our Veg Fest that happened over this past month. Again, they have not been with us since 2019. So it was nice to see them come back a little bit smaller than what they had done in the past, but certainly nice to welcome another great trade show back to the area, and very well attended, and definitely a very trendy market right now. I had the pleasure of trying a ton of food that day, so it was a lot of fun, and the vendors, and just it's a full local experience. All of this is right in our backyard, so I think it's really awesome. And then, of course, just highlighting some of the amazing food that Mazzone Hospitality has done. We've had so many different galas and experiences with them, and they're really elevating a lot of their setups, and just wanted to highlight that as well. Now we can go into the meat and potatoes, as they say. Over this last quarter, we've had a total of 34 events contract. That's a wonderful number to see. We haven't been that high in quite some time, but that also highlights the fact that we're seeing that booking window compress. People are calling 2 weeks, 3 weeks out for small, large, and different types of events. So I think that proves it there. The majority of the events that I highlighted, a couple small and some larger, just to kind of show you the span of what we're actually putting in the calendar for the rest of the year. They're everything from a dance competition to a Rubik's Cube Friends, another cannabis event that is coming up in the next week, a couple of corporate holiday parties, quite large, which is wonderful. And then, I'm sorry?
No, nobody believes that. The last holiday
I know. It
Nobody
is.
believes it.
I did not fudge those numbers. I promise you. I should have said parties. Actually, it's a corporate event that is actually having 3 holiday parties in a row with 2,400 people each. So it's a nice event. We worked with them in the past, but we have not seen them since 2019. So it's going to be
drugs, huh?
yeah.
A lot of drugs up there.
I know. It's going to be wonderful to welcome them back through the doors and especially see the space transformed. I'll be giving tours that week if anyone's interested in coming in to see it. So that brings us up to a total of 161 events altogether, 248 days, a little over 78,000 people, and around 9,500 hotel room nights. We do still have an additional 4 contracts that are issued. Most of those contracts are for smaller meetings that are coming through. But you know, it's nice to still see, even in the last couple of months here, some interest in getting some events in. If we go to the next page, we just realized the chart information that really shows you where we're tracking as far as you know, events and overall categories. Obviously, our social events and meetings are running the top categories along with public shows. And I think it'll be interesting to start seeing, as Michelle said, this switch for 2023. And I'll speak a little bit more to that as we go through the slides. But you'll start to see, you know, the shift start to happen where some of the shows that we have been working with and have been going full steam ahead will slowly start to displace and shove to our not shove to our partners, but expand to our partners as the convention business starts coming in and our calendar starts filling in a different way. So go ahead, Evan. And we'll take a look at 2023. Again, we've had an additional 21 events contract over the last quarter, which is a wonderful high number. And if you're looking at this list, you really see what we start to talk about. We have 2 corporate meetings, 2 or 3 conferences. We have a regional powerlifting competition, which I spoke of last quarter. But some new events in here too. You know, the New York State Charter School Association, that's a new piece of business for us. Behavior Analysis actually is with us today, and they've re-signed for another 2 years with us. Wine and Dine for the Arts, of course, we're excited to welcome back for January, and our APA billiards tournament as well. So, you know, you start to see this shift start to happen where you're seeing these meetings and conventions coming back, smaller categories of sporting events and perhaps public shows. But, you know, you look at the impact and the amount of people that are coming with each one of these events, and you start to say, we're getting back to what we're used to doing and the whole purpose of the investment in this facility. That really brings us to 43 events for 2023, 83 event days, and 31,800 people and 5,500 hotel room nights. And I think even looking at that, you know, we're only at 43 events with 5,500 hotel room nights, you know, and you look at where we are this year at 161 events, and I have just shy of 10,000 hotel room nights. So it's really starting to paint that picture of the events that we're bringing in are starting to have more of those hotel room night pickups, which is a great story to tell right now. Okay. And really at this, again, we're just tracking categories. Our meeting category still continues to be strong, followed by social and sports. However, it is important to start seeing some of these other categories start to fall into place. And I think as we continue to track and go through everything, we'll start to see a lot of the convention and meeting trade show categories start to full turn. Okay. So the next slide I want to highlight is a little video that Baker PR did for us for NECAN. This was a wonderful cannabis event that we had at our facility over this last quarter. It's first time event here. They do travel not only regionally, but nationally. So just wanted to make sure that you guys got a snapshot of that event. Into the show. They did have 2,000 people in attendance. It was a very, very well-run show. We had a great relationship with the promoters. And they've already rebooked for 2023, and they were very gracious enough to give us a great testimonial that we were the best buildings on their tour. The only comment that they said was they hope they don't outgrow us in the next couple of years. So I'll put that in my pocket for when we start talking about other topics. But you know, I just wanted to make sure.
Sure, want to talk about the product? Grow.
I'm sorry?
Sure you want to talk about the product, grow?
Yeah, growing, in different categories for that manner. But they certainly seem to be the industry leaders in this type of expo. So we were excited that we got a spot on their tour, so to speak. And we'll be very excited to welcome them back for next year. Go ahead, Evan. We also wanted to highlight the fact that we were successful in facilitating a connection. The Northeast Ski Show has been with us for quite some time. The last few years, obviously with the pandemic, there's been a little bit of back and forth on whether it was going to come back into the market and just, run in general. We were very excited to help with the partnership with ADK Sports and the Bardaks, both clients that we have worked with in the past. And ADK Sports has now purchased the ski show, and they will be bringing it back to ACC for another wonderful year, and not this weekend, but next weekend. They are opening the show for free for all attendees, which is the first time that has happened. So we're excited to keep the tradition going. It is the longest running ski show. And we're just we're thankful that we were able to sort of facilitate the continuation of this process, and we're excited to see what the new ownership does with it. I wanted to make sure if anyone's been to the building and have been walking around, you've started to see some of the QR codes that are on the left-hand side. ASM has developed a really cool program for a customer experience survey. Many of you on this board know surveys are part of what we've done since we first started. But the majority of those surveys go to the end user, the person that signs the contract, the person that plans the event with us. And ASM realizing that there's a lot of benefit to knowing the customer experience in addition to just the end user, they've developed a great and very powerful tool for us to use. So, really, if you're attending a conference, you can scan the QR code. Any of you can try it out. There's questions that range from, how was your parking experience? How was your experience driving to the destination or traveling to the destination? How was your experience at the hotel? And then it runs to more of a building specific. How was your experience with the meeting? How was the cleanliness? How was the safety? And so while it's important for us to gather information from our clients, I think it's also going to be important to gather some public information as well, and perhaps help us, crafting some capital projects in the future, or really just dialing into a new, breadth of information that we never had before.
You report that to us quarterly?
So this is brand new.
I was gonna say, but
Yep.
how is this reporting gonna differ from what we generally get from the
So
client?
I to be honest, I think
We don't know.
we don't know.
Okay.
I'll
That's
see,
fine.
the volume of use of it, and I'll make some suggestions to the board on
Okay.
how best to probably report it. Perhaps we do, halfway through an end of year, or we do it quarterly when we do these board meetings. I want to see the volume of use that we
Yeah.
really start to get. It's a sort of, process for us too. I want to make sure they're in locations that people are really utilizing. It's going to take us a little bit of time to see where are the best places to have those logos or the QR codes placed that are getting some high use.
But certainly if you see like a spike in something,
Yeah.
you'd report it. to-
Yeah, absolutely. And the really cool, there's a lot of really cool features. The metrics are amazing of what you actually can pull out of. You can be very specific to an event or very broad to a 4-year or a 4-month window. But I think what's also cool about the program is we can respond in real time. So if someone perhaps, there's a spill or something has happened, they can click on, go through the QR code and actually formalize a complaint or, ask for some assistance. And that immediately goes to our vet manager team, and they can respond in real time, which I think
Okay.
is really neat. And I know for the arenas too, this is a program that's been launched for both avenues, both areas. It's been very, very cool to go through that process. So just wanted to make sure I did a nice intro for it, and I'll certainly keep you posted as we go through the process and see what sort of benefit this brings us. So ACC has been in the news over the last quarter, many of which topics I've already gone through. Obviously, the cannabis convention had a great PR reach. again, thanks to Baker PR on just about all of these areas, working with our clients, not just working with us, but, working with our clients and seeing how we can best serve them. The Reptile Expo came back to us for the second time this year, had a wonderful, wonderful show, and again, got some really, really great pickup. And then, of course, our martial arts competition that we had, I mentioned earlier, some really, really great views and clicks for us to be in a positive light. And then if you want to move on, ACC has also been in the trade publications partnership with Baker PR. They've been working really, really hard with our team to really get us out there as influencers and get us out there to contribute to a lot of these articles that some of the trade pubs are going in. One of the articles is corporate event meeting planners, getting more creative with virtual options and hybrid options. Another one that we have done is how to keep inflation from wrecking your event budget, creative ways and tips that meeting planners can sort of help navigate the world of inflation and what we're all going through when planning events. One of the articles I'm most excited about is the Business View magazine article. They have done 2 specials on us since we have been opened, and I'm excited that they've come back to recognize us for another. That article will be coming out in November, end of October. So we'll be seeing it soon, and I'll make sure I highlight that at the annual in January, so you guys get a view of it. And I might actually send it to Duncan in advance, so it'll be a fun little view. But that should be a wonderful piece for us as well. And that was it for me.
Questions for Shannon?
You want to roll into the capital improvements, or
I think we should.
Okay. you want to
I would
say?
say that
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
we have a summary of the capital improvements that the board really on this year. Again, a quick status update. Not into a lot of details on that easier. Shannon had a quick presentation to sort of show you some of the impacts of the building over this past year, setting the stage for the additional conversation we'd like to have about stair 1. What we try to do is look within the existing facility, work within the footprint. How can we make it more efficient? What are the needs? Some of it comes from the surveys that Shannon has gathered information from. Also interaction with the employees and what's necessary to do their job better. So that's what we'd like to present to you now.
On behalf of the entire team here at the Albany Capitol Center and ASM, we would like to take a second to personally thank the Albany Convention Center Authority for your continued support and investment in our capital improvement projects. Over the last year, we have been able to improve in several categories. Some of those categories include safety awareness, organization of inventory and optimizing our storage options, new solutions for high traffic areas, adding a much appreciated and needed employee breakout room, and investing to make sure that our back of the house looks just as good as the front of the house. All of these items have allowed us to continue to shine and show our customers that we want the best for them and the future of this facility. We thank you so much for your investment and for listening to us through this journey. We now will highlight some of those areas and show you what these improvements have done for our facility.
lot of work.
Well done.
So thank you. Yeah, thank you guys.
Good job.
Thank you.
The next item we have under operations is a suggestion that's come about, discussions with ASM, also discussion with Discover Albany, as to when information can be available on a monthly basis, but importantly on a quarterly basis. So what we'd like to do is to suggest anyway a change in the schedule of meeting in 23. Have EI committee meetings occur on the Thursday of the week before the quarterly meeting of the board, as opposed to the Tuesday, which is going to give Discover Albany a little more time based upon when it receives the economic impact information from ASM. If that's acceptable, then this would be a meeting schedule that we would put out and publish and we'll also put on the website. And the changes are noted at the very bottom of the page, where we changed from Tuesdays to Thursdays. The exception being the economic impact committee that is just before the annual meeting, which has to be that Tuesday, because of when the annual information can be available from ASM, preparation for determination about the operator fee.
So,
This is also a draft of the proposed schedule for next year, so we would like board input. We'll put it out. Doesn't require approval, but we want to make sure the consensus for these days, that they fit your schedules as well. We're trying to accommodate all needs here.
so if you could all look, please, at your own calendars for next year. And if there's any real issues, let Duncan know, please.
That would be great. Thank you very much. Next item is extension of the capital improvement approach we've taken so far, and that is where within the footprint can we make things more efficient? So we put a challenge out to ASM some time ago, and they said, okay, whatever it is are underutilized, what are not fulfilling the purpose. And one thing that was identified immediately was stair one, and it's visually impactful as this architectural feature is. It's the least used element in the building. The concept of people using it as a communication stair, it's too long. It's too remote. So we looked at the possibility of recovering that space and how could it be used? What retail uses do we have? And it appears there's very good retail use on the first floor, retail opportunity on the second level, and at the interim level, the mezzanine level could be used for perhaps office space, meeting space, but probably not retail because it isn't directly connected to either of the levels and easily accessible. Instead, it connects to the walkway, which is a public space. It connects the hotel to the Empire State Plaza walkway. And as such, really isn't part of the building on level 1 or level 2. So with the consensus, concurrence of the board, we proceeded and sought a review from CHA. You know, they were the engineer of record for this project. And what I'd like to ask now is CHA to come up and present a review of the concept. Kelly, introduce yourself to the board if you would.
Sure, I'm Kelly Millerano with CHA, and I was the project manager that Duncan had approached to explore the option of reclaiming some very unused and powerful space. So we explored some options to see how feasible it was to infill that space from a structural perspective, from an MEP's perspective, and also from a visual impact perspective and reasonableness of cost. And so we came up with the overarching concept that it is in fact possible. And this is obviously a very fluid concept. It can change, but the basis of the design is that we fill in the space, we incorporated some glazing, and I think you have a rendering at your seat as well, some movable partitions with doors, and we kept the footprint of the stair as small as possible from a code perspective to still allow safe egress from floor 2 to 1.5, which needed to be maintained. We did not need to maintain it all the way to 1, which gave us some more square footage on the first floor. On 1.5, we end up with 2 larger office spaces and a small conference room. And on floor 1, we have a multifunctional space because you could have it open and recaptured into, I believe, pre-function area.
Right.
Or close it off and have a separate space that could be used independent of the larger space. And on floor 2, it's the same essential idea. It loses a little bit of footprint with the stair in there, but the stair is as compact as possible. And we get an open space that can also be closed off and utilized separately. And all of this glazing is to keep this view, to keep this view and to keep that beautiful light that comes into the space and maintain the overall aesthetic of the building.
In your package, the very last piece is an expanded view of the floor plan. And then as Kelly mentioned, you have a copy of the rendering, which was just completed yesterday by ACCA. And the timing of this has been great. It's been very
Yeah,
helpful.
there you go.
So you can start to see the two together. And very importantly, in asking ASM to identify areas that were perhaps underutilized, we asked them, well, what is the return on investment? And in starting to consider what this would cost, this opportunity is an opportunity to recover the investment in a very reasonable period of time. An investment which needs to be determined. We need to determine the cost of architecture. Those have not been finalized at this time. But conceptually, knowing approximately what these things are worth, return on investment is there. Because the second floor and the first floor will be leasable space, will be part of the events. Shannon, do you want to add anything to that? I mean, you've been critical as part of this review.
Yeah, no, thanks, Duncan. I think for us and those of us who have been on this journey for a while, one of the things we're constantly talking about is adding additional breakout space, breakout rooms. And while we have this wonderful ballroom space upstairs, having 6 breakout rooms down here, one of which is this, and this is usually utilized as a show office or perhaps some other avenues. So having the limitations on having breakout space is something that we have heard and sort of struggled with as far as bids go. Bids come in and they need 9 breakouts rooms or 8 breakout rooms, or usually we're just about shy of where we need to be. So having the ability, first and foremost, to add on 2 additional breakout rooms into our inventory is amazing. But in addition to that, what we're seeing this new trend is, perhaps some smaller events coming through, and the ability for us to book multiple events in the same day is something that we are pushing to do, and something we really do need to capitalize on as much as possible. So having some high-end spaces that we can host a board meeting dinner, that we can host a smaller, perhaps more elevated event, or a conference that comes to us can perhaps then use those spaces for those purposes of their board meetings and additional uses. So I think for us, the first and foremost is the breakout space, but everything that's going to come after that will be an additional bonus and allow us to, expand what we're able to capture.
And conceptually, Kelly, if you could take a moment and explain how that becomes a breakout room. You see the folding doors. Can you point out some of those
Oh,
features?
sure. So if you see there's
This is on level 2, by the way.
mid-height, there's a beam, that would be the structure for this movable partition system, and they're glass panels, I believe they're 3 feet each. And they essentially just fold up and they would press against the column, but when they're open, there's a door in one of the panels, so they can be closed. You have the option to lock or have not have it secured. And so it is walled off around the stair as well, so that completely would be closed off. And I believe that space scans approximately 600 square feet. I have to double check the plan, but so it's a decent sized space. And then when it's open, it's fully fluid with the remainder of floor 2.
So you're right. The current estimate is 646 square feet, so it's north of 600. That's a good number. It's a good return on investment number. Importantly, this also allows more flexibility for function space upstairs, where oftentimes the bar or other serving stations consume a lot of square footage. This allows us to localize it there. It also provides better security control on some of the events where wristbands are necessary for serving. We have age group, mixed age groups, things like this. So it's a versatile space. On the first floor, it provides you a significant amount of flexibility in terms of where your entry stations are. It provides additional rentable space. The key to the second level is to understand that while it isn't retail space necessarily, it does provide a very important function. And one thing that we don't do right now is be able to provide for meeting with our clients, except by taking rooms that are otherwise rentable and possibly in use. And this would put our best foot forward, give an opportunity for Shannon to have a small sales conference meeting there, be able to bring clients into the feature corner of the building. And I think, and I don't want to speak as the architect, so help me with this, Kelly, but from the outside of the building, there's no change. I mean, this,
Correct.
this beautiful view, that money corner that we have will not be changed by this. If anything, we're anticipating, and some of you have been on board a while, will remember there was a chandelier in that corner that ultimately didn't come to pass. For budgeting reasons, a number of things first time around. So this may be the opportunity to introduce that on level 2 from the existing ceiling. And that will add to the outside, the lighting from the inside building.
Absolutely, and it's a little bit smaller to be in scale
Yeah,
with
in
the,
scale.
the single story space, but very similar to the original proposed chandelier.
Just as a matter of scale, we've got the square footage on here. What size is this room?
This one's 1,000 square.
All right, to
Oh,
put it
it's-
in context.
Yeah, so it's a very good context. Thank you.
And I wanted to note that on the second, well, sorry, the 1.5 level, the walkway level, we were trying to maximize any usable space, and so there's also the opportunity for storage closet underneath the stairs. We're trying to not have any space wasted.
Look, you said earlier, reasonable return on the investment. I think that reasonable return is time. You have a ballpark.
Shannon, what you and I had talked about is 3 years.
Yep.
Approximately 3 years. Now, that presumes that the business is going to continue to increase at the rate it is now. That we'll be approaching stabilization once again. So it is somewhat optimistic, but I would think that to be very conservative, we would say 3 to 5 years. We were concerned at first when we understood that there had to be a stairway. But at first, my assumption was incorrect. The stairway was simply technical. But there is, it's part of the calculation for evacuation of stairs. Like if God forbid there were an event, some sort of problem, get out of the building by the quickest means. And that still is part of the function, although the fire stairs are the principal means of exit. So there had to be a stairway. So we were concerned at first that the stairway might consume so much that the space wouldn't really be useful or whatever. That's not the case.
If I could add to, John, to your question, the one thing that I also spoke to Duncan about is not only the fact of bringing in new business or adding business, but, the majority of our conventions that are already in-house and have come to us, more than likely will be adding on this space. So, we're calculating that as well, additional revenue on top of the groups that we already, welcome through our doors.
We've also challenged CHA with looking to reuse as much as possible. So the fact we have 2 existing exterior walls that will not be changed. We have interior walls that will only be slightly modified. We have an existing ceiling on the upper level. We go back to the rendering. Just a minute. Many of the features you're accustomed to seeing on that second floor, that area above, just like, there you go, just pull back that ceiling. All those things remain, those elements. We're tapping into existing electrical capacity. To the best of our ability, we're tapping into the existing HVAC system with minimal amount of modifications. We may have to have additional dedicated unit for that area. Things of those determined to the point that I think Kelly made before. This is very fluid. It's a concept at this time. What I was asking the board today is if there is general concurrence for this, then we would proceed to get proposals. As you know, we only proceeded with concept, very limited tests to make sure that first and foremost it was code compliant, which Kelly and her team have determined. Then can it structurally work, as she's confirmed it can? Is there enough electrical HVAC capacity so we don't have to revise and change the building? It is, it does. So if there's general concurrence, then we move ahead toward getting a proposal for architecture.
Yeah. I think it makes great sense. I mean, I thought in last meeting, it's existing space that we have that can be utilized better. You build the building, you find some things out that you could do better if you had a second chance. And, I can see where you can have some nice space in these board meetings that would want to be there. I mean, every bit of it, I buy into it. Watching conventions my whole life.
This building, I think it's exactly right. Would expand along the lines that Shannon has outlined, and that would be additional breakout space along with meeting space. The upstairs, the multi-purpose room, particularly with the efficient use, most recently of 172 booths, that's a good market share. But to get our market share, this type of facility can have and enjoy, we need more meeting space. But the first thing to do is look within, look for the solutions that exist within the footprint. And it's, the changes that Shannon highlighted in that reel, and this would seem to repeat that process.
Yeah, and we've known since before day one that there was not enough meeting space, breakout space.
Well,
in this facility.
I guess that's probably a question. If you go back to 2019,
Mhm.
could you have used that space, this proposed space, could you have used it then?
20 times over again or more.
I just have a comment. I think the rendering looks great. Mike, was very curious to see what your input was on this, because Shannon, you explained like the breakout space for existing conventions and meetings. What concerns me is that the smaller meetings, which you said about having multiple things going on at one time, are we taking business away from hotels? Those smaller meetings that could fit in these breakout rooms for the traditional convention, but would not used for that purpose with alongside the convention, are we taking business away from other entities?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would probably have to defer a little bit to Discover Albany for some of that comment. But in my opinion, from what I have seen, a lot of the hotels in this market are quite full. We have gotten a lot of business that have checked their boxes. I've called here, I've called here, I've called here, and they're still looking for space. I think there's a lot of compression going on. That's the fairest answer I can tell you is there just is a lot of compression in this market. There wasn't in 2018 and 2019, and I think they're starting to become again. I think, absolutely, at a certain level, we are in competition with some of our sister properties, what I call them. Space and square footage is generally the same with some. So taking business away, I don't really see it. I just really see it expanding what this destination in the market can do and can offer, and keeping as much business in this area as possible versus perhaps looking outside of Albany because they can't find a space that suits them in everything that we have to offer.
Mike, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have two comments, I guess, on it. One is, the customer, it's the customer's decision where they want to have their group, where they want to have their meeting. I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be the customer's going to decide. And, again, my whole life, I like to get small groups because small groups become big groups. And I just think it's an opportunity to, I'm on the hotel side. You hate to see groups leave hotels, but if the group wants to be here, this is where they want to be. I mean, I'm fine with that. It'll make me up my game to try and do a better job. I mean, it's supposed to be what it's all about, but I think there's groups who want to be here, there's groups who want to be in hotels, and they'll make their own decision. But I can clearly still see the breakout rooms and, the higher end board meeting that wants to sit there and, Mazzone Hospitality, you got a really fine catering package that could be better than some hotels offer. But the customer will make the decision.
The other thing, in fact, too, Dan, is that the booking window that's shortened to such an extent. Sometimes we're the third person, or fourth place venue that they call, so they've already called around and they can't. The other thing too is that this facility not having a hotel is at a disadvantage in some ways because, Mike's point, some people want to be able to meet where they stay.
Sure,
Stay where they eat, and we can't do that. So we don't have a natural advantage here. Yes, if it were a hotel.
Yeah, I look at it. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm saying that I'm in favor of the use of the space. I think it's beautiful and will provide a real flexibility with events. I've said this in previous board meetings that my concern is that we're not taking from someone else. And I just wanted to present that again.
I don't think this puts us in a position where we're more competitive in that respect. I think we're more competitive within the market share that we have because we keep getting asked by the same people who are already planning to come to it. Well, can we have more of this and more of that? And that's all we're trying to provide. I don't think it takes more away from anyone else. Still remain competitive in the market. To Shannon's point, we do compete against other properties directly.
Right.
Even though we don't advertise a lot, we still compete against properties.
And clearly, the more people in Albany, I mean, we all win. The more people we can bring in, we all win together, we all lose together. I mean, more than people think.
And
More bodies in the beds and panties in the seats.
Yeah.
I'm saying that for 10 years now.
just remember that as we have NCAA basketball coming up, there are two properties that are not in this county that are going to be host hotels. So talk about compression.
Hopefully they'll rent some.
One is.
Dan, if I could just add one last thing to your comment, you know, one of the comments I made earlier about NECAN was, you know, they just hope they don't outgrow us, you know, in a couple of years. And I think, you know, some of the groups that have been with us since 2017, I have a couple that are getting there. And I have a couple that, you know, come to us every single year and say, yeah, we really need some more space. And, you know, thinking about that in the future, the facility and making sure we're, you know, doing what we can to keep our clients. For me, that's a motivator of this just as much as the latter.
So if we were to move forward and the finances were in place, what's the proposed timeline where Shan can offer that as an option?
But I think if we were to receive a proposal for architecture, move ahead, say, comes out of the annual meeting, do that in January, unless we're going to do something ahead of time, based on the January meeting. And, Kelly, we allowed 4 months or 5 months for architecture. And then
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
approximately 6 months for construction. I think that a year from now, thereabouts, between a year from now or a year from the meeting, roughly.
Yeah.
Annual meeting, I meant to say in January, that could be open.
So you could do 2024, right?
If
Would be a wonderful
proposals
option.
came in and were acceptable in advance and the board would consider a special meeting in the meantime, then certainly over the next couple of months sometime, as you say, because the annual meeting is at the end of January.
January, right.
right, propose that to the board without more facts.
It's kind of like our second big thing, right? Our first big thing was minor basketball courts. How long do those things take to get paid off?
6 months.
I think we were thinking 3 years.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, the
It's a little
basketball
different
court
with basketball
investment
courts,
was, I mean, I could still probably host a basketball event every weekend if I wanted.
Yeah, the general manager at the time, you know, I think conservatively estimated somewhere between 3 to 4.5 years, and then 5 to 3 or 4.5 years, and they were paid off in 2.5 years. So I mean, we can have it, events here and events elsewhere. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a good move.
And now we're doing pickleball, you know, we're
That's it.
utilizing those courts for things that we never even imagined in the beginning. So,
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you so much for your time.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I gotta go, Zoe.
I think it's the end, right?
Unless there are any questions. for us.
No. Any questions,
Not on.
especially our newer members? And we're sorry that Joaquin could not join us today, but he and his wife had a baby on Monday. So
That's a legitimate reason.
that's a legitimate. Okay. I'll call
Bring
you.
him over here.
I thought you were going to keep going. I'll talk.
Right.
Any further business? Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion.
Okay,
Third.
thank you. Okay, thank you all so
Thank
very, very
you.
much.
Good deal.